you see him driving here? Come on, come on, come on! Move it!
As far as Nick Toons go, Rocko's Modern Life is classic. With so many insane residents of O-Town, which ones stand out as the most moral and which ones are hilariously deplorable? Welcome to Wicked Binge. This is Rocko's Modern Life characters, good to evil. As usual, let's start with the most noble character and work our way down to the most evil. These characters are the good, and the gold medal of good has to be awarded to Rocko's trusty canine companion, Spunky. In a world full of anthropomorphic animals, Spunky is a dog who, for whatever reason, looks and acts like a regular dog, somewhat akin to Pluto in Mickey Mouse's universe. As such, Spunky has many traits reminiscent of real dogs, such as his loyalty and overly positive attitude. Rocko clearly loves his dog, and it's easy to see why, as Spunky is almost always good-natured. That being said, he isn't exactly the most intelligent pup in the world, and he often gets himself and Rocko into dangerous situations because of his dim-witted nature. So we'll also have to award Spunky the Darwin Medal as well. But still, how can you not love that big, goofy, dumb smile on his face? From a dog to a veterinarian, and also a surgeon, dentist, pharmacist, and cashier, depending on which episode you're watching, the silver medal of good has to go to Dr. Paula Hutchinson. This character has somewhat of an interesting origin story, as Nickelodeon executives were pressuring Joe Murray to add a positive female role model to Rocko's cast of characters. Even though Murray was against this idea initially, as he didn't consider any of the characters of the show to be role models at all, he did eventually change his mind after he managed to make Dr. Hutchinson an entertaining and funny character that he really liked. Due to the nature behind her conception, it only makes sense that she ranks among the most moral characters on our countdown. She's positive, energetic, friendly, and very professional, working in several high-ranking positions in the medical industry. Later on in the series, Dr. Hutchinson marries Filbert, and the two have children together, showing her strengths as both a mother and a wife as well. The only reason she isn't getting the gold medal is because she does have some questionable characteristics, such as apparently keeping a baboon heart under her bed pillow at night, which is a little weird even by the standards of the Rocko universe. With that said, the bronze medal of good has to go to none other than the title character himself, Rocko. Being the central protagonist of the series, Rocko fits into a lot of archetypes you'd find in your average everyman. He's friendly, polite, and easy to get along with, although he tends to be a bit nervous and unsure of himself. He cares a great deal about his friends and pet dog, and usually enters every situation he faces hoping for the best. This does cause certain characters to take advantage of Rocko due to seeing him as a pushover. It should be noted though that as generally well-mannered as Rocko is, he does have an explosive temper at times when he finally gets pushed to a breaking point. He's quiet and generally well-organized, almost to a fault, as anything which disrupts his way of living can potentially send Rocko into a fit of either rage or paranoia.
Okay. I guess change is okay.
Despite his occasional faults, Rocko's friendly demeanor and ability to see the good in people even after they have wronged him multiple times is more than enough for him to take home the bronze medal nonetheless. But a main character is nothing without his best friend, which is why Heifer Wolf is up next. A cow who is raised by a pack of wolves, hence his last name. Heifer is a big, goofy dimwit who often accompanies Rocko in his many adventures. While not portrayed as particularly smart, to say the least, Heifer is extremely loyal to Rocko as a friend and maintains a highly positive attitude throughout most situations. He's a lot less quick to anger than his other best buddies, although he can get irritated occasionally when pushed far enough. The optimistic nature of Heifer ensures he almost never has bad intentions, even though his general stupidity can cause him and Rocko to get into plenty of unfavorable positions, much like Spunky.
Heifer!
Oops, sorry.
A big trait of Heifer is that he loves to eat excessively, living up to the stereotypes of cows and steers, or a wolf depending on how you want to look at it. So we have to give Heifer the gluttony medal for that reason, which hopefully he doesn't mistake for some kind of meal in disguise. Heifer isn't the only person who Rocko spends his time with, as his other best friend, Filbert, is very prominent too. Given that Filbert is friends with Rocko and Heifer, it should come as no surprise that Filbert shares many of their positive personality traits. Namely, Filbert is generally well-mannered, caring, and friendly, although less so than the other two due to his perpetual nervousness. His overly neurotic nature does cause Filbert to be difficult at times, since just about everything under the sun can make him nauseous, scared, or angry. We have to award Filbert the Sloth Medal since his fears often prevent him from performing certain tasks, no matter how mundane or innocuous they may be.
I'm nauseous. I'm nauseous.
He's also a turtle, which is pretty close to a sloth in terms of speed. Even so, Filbert is never malicious, and nor does he ever go out of his way to purposefully make anyone uncomfortable or unhappy. Filbert later marries Dr. Hutchinson and has kids with her, showing that despite his flaws, he is a very respectable husband and father. That, along with being a good friend to both Rocko and Heer, is more than enough for us to call Filbert a very moral turtle. Now, if you've ever gazed into the nipples of the future, then you already know the next spot is going to Really Big Man, a superhero in O-Town who is the star of his own comic book series. Really Big Man dedicates his life to finding justice and bringing safety to those around him.
Big is good!
He hides under his secret identity, Lois Lane, which is about as convincing a disguise as Clark Kent's glasses. Despite his mostly noble intentions, Really Big Man often causes more harm than good, due to his super strength accidentally causing more problems than it ends up solving. It's also clear that Really Big Man is not opposed to selling out, accepting various deals for comics and movie franchises based on his own character. Now let's round out the good section with a trip next door to talk about the first of Rocko's neighbors, Beverly Big Head, or Bev for short. The Big Heads are an older couple who, by sheer nature of living in close proximity to Rocko, get involved in a lot of his shenanigans. Bev is almost always portrayed as the kinder of the two, being generally very friendly to Rocko and his friends. It's even suggested that she finds Rocko quite attractive and tries to seduce him once she hits a rough spot in her marriage.
Would you zip me up, darling?
Which sounds like a shoo-in for the lust medal to us. Even with her somewhat flirtatious nature, Bev does love and care about her husband, daughter, and even dog, no matter how difficult any of them can be at times. We'd say Bev demonstrates a lot of genuine patience and care for those around her, even if she has a hidden wild side that comes out every once in a while. And that about wraps up our good category, so let's dive into the more neutral territory. These characters fall in the gray area. Speaking of the Big Heads, let's talk about Rachel Big Head, formerly known as Ralph. This character has somewhat of a complicated history, as in the original series, she was a male cartoonist who had a strained relationship with her father due to not wanting to follow in his footsteps. She moves to Hollywood and creates a hit cartoon called The Fatheads, which perpetuates Rachel into becoming delusioned with her career path. Thus, she tries to ruin her reputation by creating an intentionally bad show called Wacky Deli, which gives her even more unwanted success. Rachel is clearly quite confused about what she wants out of life, and despite her usually calm demeanor, is prone to getting quite angry and frustrated. That is, until it's revealed she transitioned from a man into a woman in the Static Cling follow-up movie.
Wow, cool.
Rachel's self-sabotaging nature and tendency to get frustrated quite quickly is what lands her in the gray area, even though most of that occurred back when she was Ralph. Still, she is a very likable character, which is why she's closer to the good section. But let's move away from the Big Heads for a minute to talk about Gladys Hippo. Not the most defined character in the series, but one of the more recurring ones. Gladys is an older woman who Rocko often accidentally collides with in some way, shape, or form, presumably mistaking Rocko's actions as sexual misconduct. She will usually spout her catchphrase, "How dare you?"
How dare you!
Before tossing Rocko away aggressively. We don't fault her too much for this, as we're not quite sure we'd believe Rocko was accidentally colliding with the same person over and over again either, as true as it may be. What lands her in the gray area though is not only her repeated physical abuse to Rocko, but the fact that when she does finally become his friend, it's because the two bond over ding-dong ditching unsuspecting O-Town residents. This tells us that as inconvenienced as she likes to act sometimes, Gladys does have another side to her that enjoys chaos and pranks more than she would like you to believe. Rounding out the gray area, we have one of the hardest characters to rank, Mr. Dupay. This yellow alligator is the CEO of Conglamo, a huge trading company in O-Town of which Mr. Big Head is an employee. Conglamo is not a company known for its ethical business practices, or positive working conditions, or job security, all of which Mr. Dupay overlooks.
How are the kids?
I don't know.
The company slogan is literally, "We own you," which should give you a good idea of what the conditions are like. On top of that, he has a tendency to fire certain employees over minimal reasons, which has built up his reputation as a slimy boss. Strangely enough though, if you actually meet Mr. Dupay in person, he doesn't come across as that bad. He's friendly, kind to the employees he sees face to face, and cares about the environment after Rocko shows him the importance of it. We can't say he's a bad guy, but either out of negligence or misdirection, his position as a CEO causes issues for many of his employees. And with the gray area wrapped up, let's jump into the dark side. These characters are the bad and the evil. The bronze medal of bad is going to a double ranking of Leon and Chuck Chameleon, two identical twins with Scandinavian accents.
This machine is worth more than you.
Chuck and Leon are two entrepreneurs who, much like Dr. Hutchinson, are often seen working several different jobs throughout the show. This includes a gym, a client agency, a hair salon, and a cafe, all of which they claim to own.
I'm really rich. I'll show you that in a second.
This at least makes them very successful professionally, although to say they let that success go to their heads is an understatement. The Chameleon Brothers have a highly snooty attitude about themselves and consider all their establishments to be highly exclusive, sometimes as a way to extract money out of their clients. Sounds like the right choice for the greed medal to us, but we're also going to give them the pride medal as well, as they're clearly very vain and consider most, if not all of their clientele to be beneath them. Now for the silver medal of bad, we finally get to Edward Big Head, or Ed for short. In a lot of ways, Mr. Big Head is your stereotypical grumpy cartoon neighbor, somewhat akin to characters like Squidward or Mr. Wilson. He was based off of a grumpy neighbor Joe Murray experienced as a child, which adds an extra layer of authenticity and relatability. As such, Ed is irritable, cynical, and often has angry outbursts at the drop of a hat. While he does love his wife, who usually keeps him in check, Mr. Big Head finds little value in interacting with anyone else, particularly Rocko and his friends for their annoying activities. He even goes as far as to disown his own child twice, once for becoming a cartoonist, and a second time for becoming transgendered. With all that said though, Mr. Big Head does come to see the error in his ways, sometimes. We wouldn't call Mr. Big Head an evil character by any means, but his generally antagonistic nature is still enough to earn him the silver medal of bad. And as grumpy as Ed can be though, there is one member of his household whose behavior is far worse. That's why we're giving the gold medal of evil to Earl Big Head. A once homeless canine who was adopted by Bev, Earl is an aggressive bulldog who will attack anyone or anything it comes across.
And be a good example to...
That is, with the exception of Mrs. Big Head herself, who Earl loves unconditionally for giving him a home. Earl causes many problems for the other characters in the show, particularly Rocko, Spunky, and Ed, who all know to beware when Earl is around. Heck, even in the show's very own theme song, Earl interrupts everything to chase after Rocko and Spunky time and time again. So we definitely have to give Earl the Wrath medal without question, despite his prominence in the theme song in early episodes. Earl is a character who seems to have been phased out after a while, as he's almost never seen with Mr. and Mrs. Big Head or even mentioned after a while. We're not entirely sure what happened to him, but we do hope that Earl is in a better place now than he was during the series.